May the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and Redeemer.
Amen.
To what will I compare this generation? That's the beginning of this gospel lesson. It does not tell you what has transpired immediately before. Jesus had sent his 12 disciples out by pairs. He prepared them to teach and to heal. And they were gone. Jesus continued to move on from city to city. John is in prison. And he sends a couple of his disciples to talk to Jesus. Are you the one who is to come, or are we to wait for another? Cracks of doubt as to who Jesus really is. Those disciples of John leave. Jesus goes on. He's generally followed by a crowd of people, and they must be wondering, what is going on? So Jesus asks them, to what will I compare this generation? He's not speaking to an individual. He's talking to an entire generation. And then he goes, it is like children sitting in the marketplaces and calling to one another. We played the flute for you, and you did not dance. We wailed, and you did not mourn. It's like a playground squabble. You people want this. You people want this. There's no cooperation between the two of you. And he likens it to himself and to John. We played the flute for you. That's a happy thing. And you did not dance. Jesus is talking about himself. I was one person, and I played the flute, and you all ignored me. You didn't dance. And then he transfers to John. He came neither eating nor drinking. I wailed, and you did not mourn. You say I have a demon. You rejected me, John. The generation has both rejected John and Jesus. What does it take for you people to believe? To what will I compare this generation? I ask that in light of this generation. That question is still a valid question. What should we be compared with? Yesterday was the 4th of July, and I took an opportunity to read the Declaration of Independence. It is a wonderfully written document. It's not perfect, but we are incapable of creating anything that is perfect. There's some question of how many people signed it. I don't understand why there is a question. Some commentators say 56, some say 57. The number is immaterial. But can you guess how many of those signers were affiliated with a religious entity? all but one or two. They were all religious men. They believed in God. And they met together. And I took a lot of history in school. And I'd read about some of the arguments that ensued between these 56, 57 men. They were not all of a like mind. Some thought this ought to be in there. Some thought something else ought to be there. It's almost like the children on the playground. Played the flute, we wailed, but these people came together. They joined as one to create this. Each one of them gave up their own self-interest and looked to the interest of the country as a whole. And I puzzled with that. I thought about it. I said, wow, could that possibly happen today? And unfortunately, I don't think so. We're not that way. As I preached on Wednesday, we're of a generation that says, I want what I want when I want it. There's not much room for compromise there. And then I went to the end of this lesson. Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. That same phrase was carried over into the prayer book, the 1928 prayer book. If you've got one, you will find it. It's also in Rite 1 of our new prayer book. Come to me, all you that are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. I don't know how many of you realize what a yoke is, but it's a heavy wooden instrument. And you can put it over the head of one ox and another ox. And together, that yoke makes them work together to pull a plow or to pull a wagon. Christ asks us to take his yoke. The Declaration of Independence. We are a very independent group. We've gotten someplace. We've accomplished some things. Some of it has taken long and hard work. Probably more than was necessary because we decided we could do it ourselves. And look at the state of our great nation. We can do it ourselves. That's a fiction. We cannot. The great experiment, democracy, is beginning to flounder on rocks. Everybody thinks they can do it themselves. This group has yoked itself together without God. This group has yoked itself together without God. This group, and on and on and on. We have worked very hard to get God out of our lives, to shed that yoke. We don't want your yoke when we go to school. We don't want your yoke in our legislatures when they meet. We don't want your yoke in our government in any way. So they've yoked to something else. And we are going this way, this way, this way, this way, and that way. There's no common yoke anymore. And we're suffering for it. Yes. Come to me, all that are weary and carrying heavy burdens. I am very weary of what I see. And it becomes burdensome. It's time we changed our yoke. And I will tell you, when I was going through the process to become a priest, I was a very independent person. I don't know what I was yoked to, but it wasn't to the Lord. I wanted to serve him, but I was going to do it my way, myself. It took me a lot longer to get that way. And I finally had to stop and realize if I'm going to get there, I need to be yoked and let God work with me together. And when I made that decision, the ordination came quickly. We need to look to what we are yoked with. And we need to take on Jesus' yoke. Every single one of us. He doesn't promise we'll have an easy life, but we will be able to rest. We're working together to accomplish a goal, not working separately to try and accomplish 1,000 goals. Take this lesson to heart. Find what you're yoked to. And if it's not the Lord, it's time to change yokes. Amen.
Amen.